You are watching Maximus Aviation.
Greetings, everybody. Maximus here with a huge show for you today. Kind of an aviation summer recap as we head into fall. Sometimes many aviation stories are too short for full videos, and some stories just don't get a lot of attention. So in today's show, we're going to cover a lot of ground and get you caught up on some sad, some weird, and some wacky stories in the world of aviation from the past month or so. So without further ado, let's get to it. Well, in what can be actually classified as breaking news that actually took place over a year ago, just a week after an off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot tried to shut down a plane's engines and is now facing 83 counts of attempted murder, I just learned today, as of recording this on November 1st, a Delta Airlines co-pilot pulled a gun on the captain of their flight, threatening to shoot him multiple times if he diverted the flight for a sick passenger. On October 18, 2023, a grand jury in the U.S. District Court of the District of Utah indicted Delta First Officer Jonathan Dunn for interfering with the crew of a commercial airline flight. Dunn at the time was a first officer with Delta and a member of the TSA's Federal Flight Deck Officer Program, which deputizes certain pilots to carry firearms in the cockpit for self-defense. However, unfortunately on this Delta flight on August 22, 2022, that gun was not used as it was intended. Apparently, after a disagreement between the captain and the first officer about a possible diversion due to a medical issue of a passenger, First Officer Dunn pulled a gun on the captain and said he would shoot him multiple times. Not once, but multiple times if he chose to divert the flight. And shockingly, that's all the details we have on this story at the moment. Apparently, the co-pilot must have been late for his next dose of Bolivian booger sugar. But hey, that's just my opinion. The TSA, however, has confirmed that Dunn has been removed from the Federal Flight Deck Gun-Toting Officer Program. Oh, you think? Meanwhile, Delta confirmed that the pilot is no longer employed by the airline, but the airline is refraining from commenting on this matter out of respect for the ongoing Aviation Authority investigation. The specific route of the flight hasn't been revealed, and it's not clear if the flight did end up diverting or not. Interfering with a flight crew is a felony that's punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Wow, what is going on with pilots these days? But hey, good to know that the FAA and the TSA are still quite terrible at their jobs. Well, speaking of things that go bang, October went out with a bang. Literally. A sonic bang to be exact. On Tuesday, October 31st, and probably still into November, a powerful jet stream is currently pushing commercial aircraft up to the speed of sound. Planes flying from the east coast of Canada to Europe are benefiting from a very strong jet stream. Several commercial flights from the US to the UK are reaching ground speeds of 660 knots. That's almost 760 miles per hour, or 1,222 kilometers per hour. A British Airways Boeing 787-10 was recorded reaching 660 knots when flying over Nova Scotia. At 20 degrees C or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, the speed of sound in air is about 343 meters per second, or 667 knots or 1,234 kilometers or 767 miles per hour. Airspeed is the vector difference between the ground speed and wind speed. On a perfectly still day, the airspeed is equal to the ground speed. But if the wind is blowing in the same direction that the aircraft is flying, the airspeed will be less than the ground speed. A British Airways A350-1000 flying from Las Vegas to London Heathrow took only 8 hours and 45 minutes when it usually takes almost 10 hours. Well, that's flying.
A woman was hit and killed by a plane at the Broken Bow Airport.
Says that a pilot was descending onto the runway. When he touched down, he saw a person on a lawnmower. Trooper says the pilot tried pulling up, but the wing ended up wound up striking and killing that woman.
Well, tragically, on October 2nd, 27-year-old Samantha Hayes, who worked for the city of Broken Bow, Oklahoma's Parks Department, was on a lawnmower cutting the infield grass at the Broken Bow Airport when, according to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, the pilot of a 1972 Bonanza A36 landed on the runway around 2:30 p.m. The pilot, James Baxter, 70 years old, while touching down suddenly noticed Hayes on the lawnmower. He He tried to pull up the plane and get the wing over, but the wing struck her in the head, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Baxter, the pilot, was unharmed in the crash. Tributes on social media describe Hayes as a single mother of 3 who worked hard and cherished her children. Broken Bow is a small city in southeastern Oklahoma near the Arkansas border that stretches just over 6 square miles with a population of 4,120. The airport is small with a 3,200-foot runway. The airport doesn't have an air traffic control tower, so pilots announce their landings and takeoffs. An airport spokesperson said this is a terribly tragic accident, and our deepest sympathies go out to the employee's family and friends, and it's critical that we determine how this accident occurred so we can take steps to prevent something like this from happening again. That truly is a tragic story. A passenger on British Airways Flight 348 departing from London bound for Nice late in September appeared to be dozing off for a nap, as most of us usually do on airplanes. However, when the Airbus A320 landed at Nice Airport 1 hour and 47 minutes late, as all the travelers got up and grabbed their bags from the overheads and began to deplane, all of them got up except the lady who had fallen asleep. But it was then that the stunned passengers on the flight found the 73-year-old woman who was thought to be asleep had actually died on the flight. Boy, you gotta love that in-flight British Airways service, don't you? The flight crew quickly informed the control tower and requested emergency medical intervention. The paramedics tried to resuscitate the victim, unsuccessfully. Her death was unfortunately declared around 10 p.m. The 73-year-old woman, who has not been identified, is believed to have suffered a heart attack. And also, sadly, in October, an Air France pilot has died in California during a layover in Los Angeles. The body of Tom Gerber, a Boeing 777 co-pilot, was found by a rescue helicopter in an area known as the Notch, after the area search and rescue team was dispatched to search for a missing hiker. The pilot had traveled to Los Angeles on Air France flight AF66 from Paris and headed directly from the airport to prepare for his dream hike to the summit of Mount Whitney, which is the highest peak in the country outside of Alaska at 14,500 feet. According to local media reports, it appears that during his climb to the summit, he had slipped and fell about 1,000 feet, or about 304 meters, to his death. His body was recovered that evening and transferred to Tulare County Sheriff's Office, who confirmed his identity. Well, we all know Alaska Airlines had a terrible October. Of course, we're all aware of the pilot who tried to crash one of their Horizon jets. But also in October, an Alaska Airlines pilot, 37-year-old Captain Eric McRae, based in Seattle, died suddenly on September 23, 2023, in his hotel room during a layover. Seattle-based Airlines Captain Eric McRae was discovered deceased in a New York hotel room last Saturday after he failed to meet the crew in the lobby for the return flight to Seattle. It's reported that McRae's death was sudden and unexpected, and no foul play was believed to be involved. According to the site AirLive, McRae's roots ran deep at Alaska Airlines, where he has worked for 9 years. His father is a retired captain of the airline. His wife is a flight attendant for the airline. Together, they had 2 small children, a toddler and a newborn. Well, that's a bummer. Man, October was a bad month. Sad all the way around. Well, let's get to some lighter news. Well, you could say this next story is a real stinker. On October 15, passengers on the low-cost airline Easyjet went through a rather foul situation when their flight from Tenerife to London was cancelled due to a messy deposit which was left on the lavatory floor. The flight, which had already been delayed for mechanical reasons, had the situation made worse when a passenger, let's say, exploded in the bathroom in such an extreme way that there was not enough time nor disinfectant for adequate cleaning. As a result, the passengers were forced to spend another night in Tenerife and were only able to return to their destination the following day. Wow, so that's the second worst explosion on the runways at Tenerife, huh? What, too soon? But on social media, some passengers bashed the way Easyjet had not resolved the crappy situation quickly or efficiently. In response, the airline apologized for the inconvenience and promised to refund hotel costs. However, the passenger responsible for the mess has not been publicly identified, but look for their photo on a box of X-Lax at a pharmacy near you soon. And this isn't the first case of a flight disrupted due to hygienic problems. Earlier in the summer, a Delta flight heading from Atlanta to Barcelona had to return an hour after departure due to a passenger who had an attack of diarrhea, and she did a Home Alone, running up and down the aisle of the aircraft while she was, running. According to the pilots, there was a biological risk to the health of passengers, which made it unfeasible to continue the flight. Well, continuing with the theme of disgusting airlines flying the disgusting skies these days, Air Canada has apologized after kicking 2 passengers off a flight for refusing to sit in vomit-covered seats. According to Airlives, Susan Benson, who was on the Las Vegas to Montreal flight, said the pilot warned the passengers that they would be put on a no-fly list if they kept complaining about having to sit in the puke. She added that the staff tried to cover a bit of the foul smell with perfume and coffee grounds. Oh yeah, that'll fix it. Air Canada said the passengers clearly did not receive the standard of care which they were entitled to. We didn't know at first what the problem was, Miss Benson posted on Facebook of the flight last month. Apparently on the previous flight, someone had hurled chunks on the plane, and as usual, the flight crew didn't clean it up. Seriously, if you actually believe that airlines clean planes between flights, you are delusional. And the same goes for hotels too. Both are just biohazards anymore. But the flight attendant was said to be very apologetic, but explained that the flight was full. She said staff placed the coffee grounds in the seat pouch and then sprayed perfume. But she said the seat and seat belt were still wet with visible vomit residue present. Well, that's just all kinds of wrong. And if that wasn't bad enough, Miss Benson said the pilot with a bad attitude came out of the cockpit after several minutes of back and forth, and the passengers were told they could leave the plane and find new flights on their own dime, or they would be escorted off by security and placed on a no-fly list. They were escorted off by security. Hey, Air Canada, how about you have a no puking on the plane list and make the flight attendants sit in those seats? Miss Benson said the row made her ashamed to be a Canadian and ashamed of Air Canada. Air Canada said it was reviewing this serious matter and that operating procedures were not followed correctly in this instance. Well, that's a big no duh. And finally, this happened in September, but I wanted to end with this, because a randy couple, as they say across the pond, was very publicly caught in the lavatory of an Easyjet in the midst of joining the legendary Mile High Club. I guess they don't call it Easyjet for nothing. The Easyjet was flying from London Luton, UK to Spain when a couple entered the lavatory in the rear of the Airbus, that is. Well, that sure was an interesting choice of words. But as passengers noticed the couple enter the lavatory, they made the crew aware of their impending consummation and all prepared their camera phones. It was then that a very cheeky flight attendant opened the door of the lavatory at the rear of the plane, where the couple was, let's say, in the throes of disgusting airline bathroom blue water love. It was at this point that the whole plane erupted in laughter. However, there wasn't any information if either of the couple in the bathroom had time to enjoy a happy ending. But it didn't take long for the whole incident to go viral on social media. Easyjet indeed did confirm that the incident took place on one of their flights, and as it is illegal to engage in sexual activities in a public loo, as they say, cops were informed by staff on board the aircraft. A spokesman for the airline said, "We can confirm that this flight from Luton to Ibiza on 8 September was met by police on arrival due to the behavior of 2 passengers on board." So there you have it, the Maximus Aviation Big Summer wrap-up of the weird, wild, sad, and disgusting summer of commercial aviation. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something new along the way, especially which airlines to avoid flying. Please don't forget to share your comments down below, subscribe, like, and remember, ring that bell so you're notified whenever we release new content. And of course, leave the rubber on the runway. No puke or poop, please. And your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.